Yeah.
When we're hearing thunder in here, it's loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
You
guys.
get like that. There's 2 insulated walls, a 2-foot sound barrier like between us and that, and I just
Dang.
heard a rumble coming through.
Wow.
Yeah, so you probably don't want to be on the road right now. So this could be good timing.
Yeah.
Good. We'll see.
Okay.
Oh, what do I tell Erica that pregame was about?
I don't know.
Jim Croce
Pregame.
came in strong with some Jim Croce.
You did that we didn't know.
Janet's gonna come out and teach the kids for a week.
Yeah, this is all
and
good
hang
stuff.
out.
Yeah.
I want you to know, I mean, while you guys are discussing this, the other day when I texted you about that I was in the grocery store looking for apples, I really was. I was really standing in the apple department, the apple section. Apple.
Please tell me yours. It's such a big grocery store that you're like, could you point me in the direction of the apple department, please?
Yes, I was in the apple department.
Yeah.
They had too many watches for some reason.
I'm shocked that well, good point. I'm shocked that the as long as we're talking about it, I'm shocked that the Cosmic Crisps look bad. I've just never had a bad Cosmic Crisp. They're always like they always look genetically engineered.
Yeah,
maybe
I was like
creepy,
my children love apples, so I was like, well, I'll try to get some of these for them. And I went over and was like looking at them, I'm like, these look disgusting. I mean, it's not the apple, it was just like they had a bad. It was like picked over, and it was they were nasty and bruised. And I was
Real
like,
quick, is steerage STEA or STEE?
I think it's STEERAGE.
That's
like steer, like cattle. Tiffany, I love the idea that when you said apple department, it made Tiffany so mad that in all caps she was like,
the produce department.
Like that's like that's like a button. We like pushed a button.
Yeah.
Tiffany's like, I can't.
Has never been in an apple department?
My kids make fun of me now because like so I've very structured how I've been eating lately, and I'm like 6 hour is apple. So every day, like halfway through 6 hour while I'm teaching, that's my one of the investigative classes. I'm like, oh, you know what time it is? And
I can't believe they show you a modicum of respect.
Yeah, one of the kids
they
like, Mr. Ruff, is it apple time? I'm like, it's apple time.
he just got an email from a student that said, "Hey, big guy." It didn't
no,
say, "Hi,
that's
Mr.
so
Ruff."
bad. My dad
Mr.
would be
Ruff.
my dad, the senior English teacher, would be aghast that someone had the cojones to write, "Hey, big guy." He would be shocked and so dismayed.
Yeah, there's a lot of smart aleckiness that goes on, but I give it to them, they give it back to me, so that's it's all fair, I guess.
Yeah, well, it is fair.
I have been writing a lot of referrals. Yeah, I have been writing a lot of referrals lately, though. Too, they're some of them are trying to push that line of like, what is okay to like joke around and what is not okay. Usually, it's when Mr. Ruff says, "This is not joking time. Stop. It's time to get serious," and they're like, "But I just out."
Let me ask you, does it go something like this? Okay, guys, this is not joking time. It's time to get serious. You bite into your apple.
No, because it's never it would be, but it's never that class. It's always one of my other hours.
Okay, because that might mitigate the circumstances a little bit of being taken seriously.
Yeah.
Don't make me send you to the principal.
Yeah, I do a lot of snapping.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, we're not looking at computers. I'm talking up here.
Yeah.
Have you seen AP Bio?
Yes. Oh, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I watched. I did start watching it.
That's how you should walk into your classroom.
Yeah.
All right, let's start to shut up.
I like that.
Oh, now let's talk. Got me hungry for an apple again now.
Yeah. Sorry, it's not apple time right now, big guy.
No, that's 6 hours apple time. Yep. And then I crave, and I told the other night it was 9:30. I'm like, I want an apple, but I can't because it's 9:30. It's not apple time. Apple time is 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
2 o'clock is apple time.
You can just go to the apple department. And
9 o'clock is protein shake time. You must have a limiter on your either that or StreamYard is doing it. Every time you yell, it cuts you down.
It's StreamYard. I'm sure it's StreamYard.
Okay.
I don't disagree. I usually want to. I'm sorry. I started before I knew you were doing that.
Doing what?
I didn't know that you were going to end it right there, and I was talking back to the chat.
Oh, did we end it?
Well, I don't know.
Did we start it?
I mean, I haven't pushed any buttons yet.
Thought we were getting started.
I thought we were too. Then Janet just talked some nonsense. I don't know what.
You said we both said at the same time. I
All
can't
right,
tell
we're
when
gonna
you
end this
decided.
thing, right?
Oh, you motherfucker! That's sweet.
That's if I can get a you motherfucker out of Janet, it's been a good day. It's been a good day.
I love it.
All right, pre-gamers, we love you guys. We'll talk to you next week. Bye bye.
Bye, Gray.
So stupid. So stupid.
It wasn't me that
I was
time.
trying to
What
say.
even was that?
I was trying to say bye, pre-gamers, and then when it didn't come out right, I just doubled down and just went.
So stupid. Oh,
Pretty good.
okay. This is what I'm talking about. This should be the show. This is it. This is what we're good at.
Oh my god. Okay.
I don't know that we're good at it,
Yeah.
but we do win.
We do. Yeah, one thing I'd say for sure, we do it every week.
I'll tell you how much nonsense happens. Is someone in the chat asked what the beef was between me and Tool Girl, and I don't know.
I don't know. She said some shit. I went with it.
You guys were being idiots last week, and Tool Girl was the one that was like, "Get it together." Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. I'm paraphrasing, but as I recall, yeah.
No, I love Teresa. I know her name.
I know you love Teresa. Teresa loves you.
I love Teresa.
Love
I
it.
have a fake beef. That's how you
yeah.
go viral. I clearly don't know
that's what
anything about anything.
What?
Fake beefs. Everybody's gonna be talking about it. You'll get real popular.
That's how you get to the Super Bowl halftime show.
Exactly. Exactly. You're gonna be great.
Oh, we should start the pregame now. Guys, are you guys ready to get serious?
Do you see what she said? That's why she's dead.
Yeah.
She's still dead to me.
Yeah, that you forgot
okay.
JV,
You know what?
JV's birthday.
Maybe this is real beef now.
All right.
Listen,
all right.
okay.
You're going viral.
you got the fake beef. You're going.
Oh, we're fucked. We're absolutely fucked.
Okay.
I never wonder does anybody else think any of this shit is funny?
I don't know.
It's ridiculous.
I don't know.
Okay, guys. There's a horrible storm outside.
Okay. All right. This is going to be presumably the last show you ever record. So let's make it a good one.
Yeah, it could be. So let's go ahead and let's start our recordings.
Recording.
1, 2, 3.
How pissed off of Erica would Erica be if I just clapped like 3 seconds late?
Pretty mad.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in. What is happening?
Why would you do that? Why would you do that right now?
that?
Why would you do that?
Can we get a wall? I need a wall again. Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday follow-up for season 16, episode 14. This week we heard Bob sit down with a group of his students to discuss their podcast, Underestimated. Today I'm joined by Bob Ruff and Janet Varney, and the three of us are here to answer your listener questions. But before we get into that, do we have any housekeeping?
No housekeeping other than I guess it's not really housekeeping because it's on topic this week, but this Wednesday, this is the day we're recording this. We're hearing this on Friday. Episode 2 of the Skelton Brothers series on the Underestimated podcast just dropped. It's a banger. They're doing a great job. The rest of the students are all in a race to see who gets to go next right now. Whose series is going to come out next? I'm really pulling for the Jeanette Robertson case, but I don't know. I had to tell them at this point. There's that one, and then the Missing in East Lansing, which they're calling Voiceless.
Mm-hmm.
That group that was Gracie from
I'm pulling for Stephen Kraft. I want to hear the Stephen Kraft story.
And that one too. They're a little further behind. I don't think they're going to win the race.
They're all going to be so good. It's hard to. I mean, I want them all now.
Yeah, I got Gracie and Chelsea, the two team leaders from those two that are both like right there. They're both ready to go next. And I'm like, at this point, whoever finishes your music on your first episode first, you're it. That's what we're gonna do.
So I'm going to jump in and ask you something before we get started.
Okay.
So the podcast came out, kind of blew up, went up to like 46 on the charts, right?
Nay. It hit number 37 on the charts.
It hit number 37 on the charts. Even cooler. How
awesome.
did the kids react to that?
They are so pumped, especially when I explained to them. They're like, "Holy cow, 37!" Like, they're like, "Is that good?" I'm like, "Do you know that there's 2 million podcasts in that category, and you're ranked number 37 out of them?" And I was like, "If you look underneath you, there's me, Right there is Nancy Grace's podcast. There's True Crime Garage. There's like all the like you're ranked above all those. Yeah, so they're super excited.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, and any of you guys that haven't gone on to Underestimated and left them a review, please do that because that'll help them because we're really hoping. I want to see them get into the new and noteworthy section.
Mm-hmm.
And I would so love to see them, even if it's for a day, get into the top 10. And I think they can do it. They're getting lots of downloads, lots of reviews.
It's super awesome. And also like you're setting these kids up for failure because now they're gonna go, we just put out a podcast and it goes to number 1. It's not a big deal. That's easy. I could do that.
Yeah, well, they did do it, so they probably could.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah. That's it. These kids are amazing. They're super excited about the success, you know, and it's just going really well. Everything's going great. I can't say enough good about them. And as you guys heard, I'm sure in that episode, like these kids, they touch my heart. Their heart in what they're doing is so incredible to me. The audio didn't do justice the complete breakdown that I had in the room when you heard you couldn't hear it quite as well, but when Alexander was talking about what was motivating her, she started to crack up about it, like to break to break down a little bit about it. Lexi, absolutely. By the time Lexi lost it, I was sobbing during it. It's just like these are I love them all like they're my own kids, and just watching them have their success. And the big thing to me is like that kind of heart out of such a group of young people that that is genuine and as real as you can get. That the thing that is so important to them is that these victims have their voices heard, and that their stories be heard, and that they not be forgotten. And for me as a teacher, like it's like, if I played even a small role in helping them recognize that in the true crime space in general, in the whether they're ever going to do it anymore after this or not, then I feel like I really accomplished something, above and beyond how good the podcast is and what they're ranked. It's like that it really, they're really being impacted by the work that they're doing. They're just incredible young adults.
Oh, it's beautiful and pure. It really is. And I brought up the number. It doesn't matter. The number truly doesn't matter if they're out there making a change.
It matters.
But it's a really cool benefit, really cool bonus, really neat to see for those kids.
Yeah. I was showing them today. We started going through the analytics because my principal, Mr. Winkler, came in and was just asking how things were going. We're in the middle of class. And I was like, I said, I didn't even look, but they're probably all over the place. So the kids were gathered around. We were going through the analytics. I'm like, they're listening in Australia. I don't remember how many countries there were, but they're one of the girls, Gracie. She's like, she has friends that she like games with in Lithuania. And I'm like, go through. I'm like, yep, we got listens in Lithuania. We got listens like everywhere, all over the world.
So cool.
Yeah. So I'm like, so there's that kind of that moment too, where they're like super excited because people from all over the world are hearing their voices. And then they're also like, wait, people all over the world are hearing my voice. That's scary.
Yeah.
It's a
very
lot
much
to take
so.
in. Yeah, and during like the editing process too, it's funny to hear like the same thing we've all gone through the first time we get recorded, and you hear your voice back to you. Like I've had to talk to all of them and tell them, like, they're like, I hate my voice. What's wrong with my voice? Da 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 da. I'm like, listen, you're not alone, and this is not just like you don't like your voice. It's like literally a medical thing, an anatomical thing. The vibrations from your voice that go up to your ear, you literally hear your voice differently than everyone else hears it. So when you hear it recorded, it sounds different and it freaks you out. So like just trying to like bring everybody down because nobody likes the way they sound when they're recorded.
But don't you feel like you've gotten used to that? Like now I can't, like I don't even notice it anymore. It's
now.
Just by virtue of like, now I can't, now it does sound the same to me, even though I know.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
but also how much time do we spend with monitor headphones on and we hear ourselves, so it changes things a little bit.
It does, you're right.
But that's what I told him, like after a while, but it's the first time you hear recorded
oh yeah,
voice
I mean I definitely
back.
Yeah, it is strange. I mean, that's something that I noticed after doing it, after just doing my podcast before.
Yeah.
Where it was like there was a time period where like I eventually just heard myself. That's how I hear myself, is how I actually sound.
Yeah.
It was very strange to me.
Yeah. I keep telling them, they're like, I hate the sound of my voice. And I do the same thing I did to Erica that time. And they'll be like, I hate the sound of my voice. I'm like, well, that's how you sound. Like, you understand? That's how we hear you.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not
Well, I
good
think
at
they
that.
all have wonderful voices
They
and
really
are so well spoken. I'm loving the podcast. I saw this morning as I was getting ready to go shoot something, I absolutely had something else I should have been doing, and instead, when I saw that the Underestimated podcast had dropped a new episode, I was like, nope, that other thing's gonna have to wait. I'm gonna find something to do that allows me to listen to this episode.
That's awesome.
It's terrific, and then they're really getting results, which we hear about, of course, in the interview that you do with the group leaders,
Yeah.
that they've had like even just the burden of too much information. Like there's no such thing as too much information, but that that anecdote about like we had everything written out and
Yeah.
felt like we were in pretty good shape. That seems like something that would happen to me as like a
Happens to me
type
all the
A
time.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're like, I guess I'm in pretty good shape, doing a good job, kind of out in front of this thing, and then you get an onslaught of just like super valuable, important stuff, and you're like, wow,
Mhm.
this is obviously wonderful, but
Guess I'll just throw
guess
this
I'll
in the
be
trash and I'll
yeah.
just start
Great
over.
rehearsal, great first draft, guys.
I want to answer this question in the chat from CC because we didn't have one about it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you saw that too.
Yeah, so CC in the chat asks, they say they're just curious if the class is all girls. It's not, but it's pretty close. And this is something I feel like I meant to talk about this at some point and I hadn't yet. So I think it's a good opportunity to discuss this. No, the class is, so there's two different classes and there's 18 in each class. And in the 6th hour is all girls, and 7th hour, there are 2 boys in that class. So it's primarily girls, but there are 2 boys, and they're both in the Jeanette Robertson group. So when you hear that series come out, you'll hear their voices a little bit more. But I just want to talk a little bit about, because someone somewhere, maybe it was on social media, had asked or something like that, and I meant to talk about it. But I think that's one of the cool things that our school district, the Brandywine School District here, did is several years back, the administration, all the way from the superintendent on down, said we want to create opportunities for kids outside of just going to college, the other career paths for them. And that's what CTE programs are, career and technical education classes. And so they started adding to them. A lot of schools might have 1 or 2, and our superintendent is like, we want to have as many as possible, right? So they had the wood shop and the auto shop and the CNC and the mechanical drafting. They have all those classes. But what they noticed is that in those classes, even though girls are welcome and encouraged to take them too, the enrollment is like 96% male in all of those classes. And so that's kind of part of the reason the broadcasting program got created, was because they wanted to make sure that we had career and technical education classes options available for something that the girls in the school might be interested in, because it seems that they're not in large numbers interested in those other career paths. And again, I want to stress, like, they can all, and actually when Stephanie and Gracie went with me to speak in front of the school board about our class, the student that spoke about the wood shop was one of the girl students in there, one of the female students in there, and she's like one of the stars in that class.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like, in numbers, a lot of girls didn't want to do that stuff, and so they felt like there weren't any CTE options within our school for them to do. So that's, they kind of brainstormed about it, and they came up with, what if we do this broadcasting course, and offer that and see if that's something that will give them these opportunities. And it has. So my classes I have 6 classes, and across my 6 classes, I have 5 boys out of all the classes. So it's literally the exact flip-flop opposite of all the trades classes, where I have like 95% girls and 5 boys, compared to the other way around. So
yeah.
Thanks for asking that, CC. But I just want to highlight, because that's just some of I really love the district that I'm working for, and I love like the things that are pushing them and motivating them, and how they encourage us to really connect with the students, from my principal to the superintendent all the way up. But that was just one of the things that I thought was cool, that they intentionally made a point to make sure that those opportunities were available.
Yeah, it was actually me, I think. I mean, it was me, unless you had already had that conversation with someone else, that I was texting with you, and I said, it's interesting to me. Like, I was sort of looking for the context, because I said, we, for those of us who sort of are in the true crime space, we know and
That's where the
sometimes it's even kind
conversation
of
was.
joked about. Yeah,
Yeah.
we is sort of joked about that it's all these very compassionate women who are. So I was trying to figure out like which came first, and you told me that and said also like they didn't have to pick what they, it wasn't even like, this is a true crime class. It wasn't that
Right.
at all. It's just like, that's kind of how everything ended up shaking out.
Yeah, the 3 classes were framed as the introduction to broadcasting, advanced broadcasting, and investigative journalism. Like, nowhere in there did it say it was gonna be true crime.
Yeah.
So the true crime aspect is not what drew these students in.
Yeah. They're so great. They're so great. You warned us that it was gonna get emotional, and I knew that it was, but then it felt like you got deep enough in that I got a false sense of security, and I was like, "I think I'm good.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm just enjoying this so much." And for me, that means I'm probably going to start crying before anyone else does, so I was
Yeah.
getting a little misty-eyed before anything, but I was like, I got this." And
Yeah.
then the real stuff came in, and I was like, "Oh, no, no, no. This is
Yeah.
killing me in the best way."
Yeah,
I
Erica
loved
did
it.
such a fantastic job of cleaning that up too, because I think it was super emotional, but also was like it would have been a rough listen because there was 5 minutes of us like collecting ourselves in there when it was
Oh.
like, okay, and then me telling them, "Don't you tell those other yahoos in here I'm in here crying." Like, she cleaned all that stuff up. But then I
That
thought
was
too, I don't
great.
know,
I
I
think she
just
left that in the episode. That particular
Oh, was that still in there?
line, I
Yeah.
think, was in the
Yeah.
episode.
I think that's true.
But yeah, I don't know. I just, as we get older and priorities change and stuff like that, it was just like everything. I just kind of had a moment, not only in the room, but then I went back and listened to it after Erica did all the editing work on it. And it was like, I don't know. I really love the fact that was an interview with high school students that are doing all this amazing work. And you got to really hear where their heart's at and where it's coming from. And the music in the episode was created by an 18-year-old student, and the editing was done by an 18-year-old former student, like from like everything. It's like just that whole idea of there being like this generation, like moving forward and moving their way up the, I don't want to say up the ladder. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I just think it's cool that there's like another generation that's coming along that is far more capable than people give them credit for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have a lot of questions that came through from our listeners who are very interested in this whole project and interested in how it's been coming along and what they can expect. And also, like, yeah, some kind of behind the scenes stuff that isn't necessarily something that you guys talked about or that will come up in the kids podcast in Underestimated. But, like, for example, Kathy says, just in terms of the experience they've had so far, do they feel encouraged or discouraged to go into investigative journalism? Is the investigative part encouraged any to go to law school, law enforcement, criminal justice, anything like that?
Yeah, it's had so there are 2 students in particular that did not have this as like a career path plan for them, that are both like all in now. Like, this is what they want to do. It's not necessarily like podcasts, but be investigative journalists. They
Yeah.
really enjoy it. As a matter of fact, both of them are juniors and they're going to be back as seniors next year, and they're both really good students, so they have room in their schedule. So they were able to set up like a work-based learning opportunity where they're going to be. Our school doesn't do like teachers assistants, but they're going to do like they're taking the investigative journalism class again, but then they're also going to be interning for me as a teacher in like 2 other hours where they can be there to help me with the other students and to continue to work the work that they're doing, because they just really wanted to. Then as again, like I keep kind of praising our district, but that was one of the things. Like when I went to the counselor, I'm like, these 2 are really into this. They want to do it for a career. I don't know how to make this work, but can we make it work? If they want to be in here doing this work, I want to make that available to them. And they like managed to come up with a way to make that happen for
That's
next year.
great. That is absolutely
Oh.
great.
There was one student who, Stephanie, actually was on the show, was on the podcast. She was really thinking she wanted to be a detective, and it's been an interesting experience with her. She goes above and beyond all the time. Like, she's the one that in her other classes, if she has free time, she's always in my room. She comes back and it's not just like to hang out. It's, hey, I know we got all these ads to do. Can I pull some of those and write ad copy for them? Can I help contact people? She's always working, helping. She loves the work. But she kind of got like, we've had such in-depth conversations. She's like, she wanted to be a detective, but she's also learned a little bit more about like law enforcement and how that works. And also like the steps you got to go through to get to, because we've actually talked to detectives and like what that process has looked like. And she's decided through the process that she's like, I would love to be a detective, but I don't want to be like a beat cop. Like I don't want to do that, and I don't want to spend 10 years doing that. So it's actually caused her to shift into I think she's looking at like going into like anesthesiology or something now. So it's kind of a weird
Mm,
way that this affected her because
mm,
it kind of pushed her away from what she was doing. But
interesting.
the way I look at it is she could have like went to college to go be a detective, to be a cop, and spent 4 years in college and got out, and only to find out that she's got to spend 10 years being a beat cop and she hates it. But
Yeah.
now because of this process, she knows what that looks like, and she knows that's not what she wants to do.
Yeah.
She's going the other route. But she's another one that's like, but I may also get like a criminal justice degree and try to be like, shift into being like a private investigator or something down the
Or
road.
the FBI or something like that, where you're not,
Yeah.
you don't go through that cop process, but you could still end up as an investigator.
Yeah.
It's cool. I mean, I think that's great. I think understanding earlier that there may be pieces of the process that maybe aren't for you is incredibly helpful, as is just seeing all of those doors open, of those doors of possibility. And that's so exciting. And I'm so, so proud.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. And I want to meet them all.
Yeah. I told you,
I
come
love
on
them.
out. You can
I love them.
coach them. They need
I
a voice
love them.
coach.
Well, Veronica, this is extending out, unsurprisingly, a natural extension. You've already answered that. We've got the couple of gals that are going to be coming in and interning and all that good stuff. Obviously, we have Erica behind the scenes already at Truth and Justice. So Veronica's wondering, are you going to hire more of them after they graduate to be a part of Truth and Justice?
If I had more jobs for them to do, I would. But yeah, I mean, right now my business does not have the capacity right now to hire more people. But yeah, certainly like any of them that are really, because there's some of them that are getting really into like the editing. I was talking about earlier in the pregame about the editing and the music and things like that. And so those are skill sets where I can connect them with, other, big, I have friends, guys like Patrick Hines who he runs a big podcast studio. It's like maybe they're looking for an editor, somebody to help them with music, people to help from my other classes too, help with social media. So we have those kind of connections for them. Right here, right now, I don't think Erica's ready to give up her job for somebody else. So I think we're good for the moment.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Ari, who is a fellow high school teacher who teaches math. Ari, awesome. Thank you for doing what you're doing as well. Super proud of your kids, says Ari, and is also wondering a little more on just kind of how the groups were chosen. Was it random? Did they pick their own groups? Do they all have the same number of students?
They're not all exactly the same. So this is the way we did it is when I started the class and I explained to them, you need to pick a real world issue that you can investigate over the course of a year and make a podcast about. And you're going to investigate it and try to make some sort of progress in it. That was the assignment. And then they spent about 2 weeks all researching different things, different case. All of them tended to go towards true crime stuff, like unsolved cases and missing persons cases. And they spent a couple weeks. First, they went through and we put a list on the board, and everybody that found something they thought was interesting, everybody had to give me one thing, right? So we had on our big whiteboard, we had 36 things up there. And then as they went through them, then I had the students go up, and everybody that wrote them up there give a quick little elevator pitch about what this thing is and why they want to do it. And then like as a group, we kind of said like, how many of these can we start to cross off the list that we don't want to do? And it was the process was it went well. Meaning like even the person who like wrote it on the board as we would discuss it with the class, people are like, well, I think we're gonna have this issue or this issue. And some of the things I was able to tell them, I'm like, listen, that's really interesting, but it's been done to death in the media already. And we're going to have these roadblocks getting any information. So they were like, yeah, we'll cross this one off. So we started narrowing it down. And then we got to, I don't remember, I think we got down to about 10 of them. And then those 10 students, I had them, okay, research it another step further and come up with, you need to tell me, the details of the case, what path forward you think you can investigate, what access do you think we'll have to information, and what do you think you can accomplish in this case? What would you hope to accomplish? And they all went up and like literally pitched to the class. They all got like 10 minutes to pitch to the class which cases they wanted to do. And then we narrowed it down to, after we did all that, we got down to the 5. There was 5 different cases that we had up there. And then once we had the 5, we put those up on the board. And then we went through the room and said, which case are you interested in? And, I thought we'd have to do a little juggling around to see who got into which case. But the way it worked out it was pretty even. It was like there were 6 students that were really interested in this case. There was 5 that wanted to do this one. There were 6 that wanted to do this one. And so they all have between like 5 and 6 people. One group has 7 people.
Gotcha.
It's coughing time.
I was waiting for that.
Good work, guys. Great. Well, that's interesting because Julia, that's actually was where Julia's head was going, was kind of wanting to better understand each group's goal. She touches on, the conversation that you had with everybody where it became about making sure that people's voices are heard. You talked a little bit about it earlier in this episode. But are there pie in the sky goals for any of the groups? Like, we absolutely want to solve this, or we want to see the guilty person, adjudicated.
Yeah, so none of them are wrongful convictions. We did look at several. Gracie in particular looked at several wrong, because Gracie does actually listen to my show. So she's really into the wrongful conviction stuff. And but it was like the ones we found kind of went through the same screening process I go through. She kept finding like, I don't think this one's going to work. This person seems guilty. And so she's the one, her group is the one that is doing the 3 missing persons cases. And so like for her group, her goal is, she wants to, one, make sure that those voices are heard, that they're not forgotten about. A little bigger goal is perhaps by broadcasting this, because none of the cases have ever been widely broadcast and talked about, that maybe there's a witness somewhere, someone who knows something, like just by getting it out in the public's eye, that maybe we can, get a break in the case. And then also she has a theory that they've been working on, that some of these cases were possibly connected. And so we're hoping to be able to make, something like Alex Campbell did at this school down in Tennessee with Murder 101, that if we can like give some feedback to law enforcement and say, hey, we found this connection and this connection, perhaps that can help them solve the case. And the Stephen Kraft case is something similar. They're hoping, he's a missing person, been missing for how many years now? It's been
2001, so 24 years.
Yeah, 24 years ago. That maybe we can find another witness in that, but also by talking to, nobody really knows much about it because they've never released any documents, and we haven't heard from a lot of family. They've been doing a really good job of like talking to family members, talking to witnesses, talking to other people in the community. They've come up with, I'm excited for them to come out with it, because they've come up with a theory on that case that I don't think was ever really addressed before.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do, I know I'm getting ahead of myself because there's somebody I already asked this question, but Jim Clementi came in and talked to them about behavioral analysis, and they were using the skills that Jim taught them. And they was just one day, it was actually Lexi is the one that was at my desk, and she's like, well, wait a minute, what about, and I don't want to give it away, but it was like, if this and this was happening, maybe everybody's looking over here, but what if it was over here? Jim's work also influenced the Jeanette Robertson case. That one, that's the one I've been talking about for months and months. It is just so interesting, and it's so frustrating to me. It almost feels to me like I have felt for years about like the Delphi case. Like, how is this not solved?
Yeah.
For the 7 years we were waiting on the Delphi case, and their goal is to find the killer there, and they're hoping. And we've already had, just from the news, because they got a lot of press on that case when they went up to Reed City. They were featured on a news program out of Grand Rapids, and several newspaper articles. We've already had people contact us with tips just from seeing the news broadcast. Wow. Yeah. So, and again, they're using some of the skills that Jim gave them. They developed a different profile in the theory than anybody was ever looking at before. We actually discussed that with the lead detective in the case, and it was a really interesting conversation. Yeah, and of course the Skelton brothers. The big thing with the Skelton brothers is they're just hoping to find the boys. Figure out where they're at. And of course we're not out. But if it was just me doing this, if it was Zach and I doing this, we'd be in the truck, boots on the ground. We'd be out, searching places and stuff like that. Obviously, they're not able to do that. But they're, again, I don't want to give it away because it was in today's episode. It was on this Wednesday's episode. Like, they made some progress in getting some people to speak. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, their big thing is they want to be able to walk away with this and know that we did something to positively impact this case.
Yeah.
whether that's awareness, whether that's solving it, whether that's finding someone, bringing forth a new witness to do something positive.
Yeah. Well, just to bring it back to the Skelton brothers for a moment, since that's the episodes that have been released so far. It's a very troubling, it's a very upsetting, it's very disturbing case because of who the prime and only suspect is, as far as I understand,
Yeah.
and the ages of the boys, and it's upsetting. And so Giovanna is wondering, like, what kind of mental health considerations are being what's being done for these teens. Are they reviewing, like, horrible details? That's kind of a subjective word, but fair, very fair
Yeah.
details of crime scenes. Are they seeing the crime scene photos? They're still very young. Like, how are you approaching all of that? Because I'm sure you're doing it with care.
Yeah, we definitely are. And I saw another part of Giovanna's question was, what are we doing to keep the kids safe as far as like interviewing people, right? Witnesses
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I'll address that first. That part's easy. Anybody that they've interviewed, they're either someone that comes into the school, and we actually have them fill out it's our volunteer form, but it's a background check. So they
Mhm.
do background checks. They come into the school. We've had one instance where we actually went to someone's house to interview them, and that was an extensive process. And it was nobody. It was the son of a suspect in one of the cases, who was 3 years old at the time this thing happened.
Mhm.
Um, I know him. Our assistant principal knows him. But even still, like, I went out there twice to meet with him and talk to him and check out the property. We had him and his wife do the background checks, all of that, and then we went out to make sure there was adults there with them. So all the safety precautions we take there. And then the Reed City trip again, there was it was all in, everything was in public with me there, right there with them at the time. And that part's pretty easy. Like, we just
Mhm.
don't let them. As a matter of fact, we had in the Stephen Kraft case, those students just found a new witness in that case that we haven't heard from before. And we arranged with him because he was like, well, I'm available these times. And so I talked to him like, listen, I don't want to take the kids all the way there to do. Is there any chance we can arrange a time for you to come into the school? He was able
Mhm.
to. Same thing, fill out the volunteer
Perfect.
form, background check and stuff, and he comes into the school to do it. As far as the mental health side of it, first of all, no, they haven't seen any graphic crime scene photos, anything like that. At the beginning of the semester, we started out with, it was very, very clear to the students the type of content, because even though it's not crime scene photos, you're still reading about, spending a lot of time with some very
Yeah.
horrific circumstances. So we made that, and we did have a few, like, after, one of them is a student I had from last year, love her to death. She still comes in my room every day before school to say hi. But after it had those first couple of meetings, we're like, this is what this class is going to involve. And she just came to me. She's like, Mr. Ruff, I don't think I can do that. I'm like, good, don't do it.
Good for
We don't
her.
want you in here. And
Good
then we
for
also
her.
relayed all that to the parents, both verbally and written. There's a whole disclaimer in our syllabus that they had to read and sign to understand, like, you're okay with a couple things. One being that you're okay with them being exposed to this kind of content.
Mhm.
Two, that they're okay with their voices being heard out in the public and their first names being available out to the public. So there's been we had to work with the parents on that to make sure that the students, because this is very unique, no one's ever done anything like this before. And then any of the FOIA requests they file, like, so we're still waiting on one of the cases to come in. Matter of fact, the state police just sent us, there's going to be another 30 days before they're going to send it. We're expecting a big packet of crime scene photos to come with that. When those come in, they come to me. I go through them first, but just like with all the other FOIA requests, and I make sure that there's no content there that is anything that I don't think the kids should be seeing, particularly when it comes to photos and stuff like that. And even as far as content with transcripts and things like that. And then it's just a constant communication with them. And these kids are open. I've had kids that are like, this is really disturbing me. I'm like, okay, then let's take a break from that. And we have social workers and counselors on site if we need anybody that has to have somebody to talk to about it. We haven't got to that point, but we would make sure we let the kids know that that's available to them at any time. And I encourage that. I have a very we were just joking before we started the show about how one of my students had just emailed me tonight, with a overly friendly email. We were kind of joking around in the email, but like, I really try to have a personal connection with every one of my students that are in that class, to where they're comfortable sharing with me how they're feeling and how they're doing and stuff like that. So it's a tricky line to toe, but so far so good.
Well, and I would just say, and I appreciate that, and I think Giovanna's question was so important, and I'm really really glad that we got a chance to address it. So thank you for that, Giovanna, because I've had the same thought. I would also say, um, I was their age before there was like or just a preponderance of information available on the
Mhm.
internet at the tap of my fingers. I think, and this is just an opinion, and I'm not a mom, and I'm not a teenager, but, when I think about the kind of stuff I was interested in and what I got my hands on when I was that age without anyone knowing, because I wouldn't tell anyone because I didn't want anyone to freak out that I was, interested in true crime or whatever,
Yeah.
um, I sort of like that it's happening in a controlled environment, because so
Mhm.
much about what teenagers have access to these days is not. And I think having it's like if you're interested in it, um, what a great opportunity to do it the right way with people who are more mature than you, who are looking out for you, and making it an activity that you're not, alone, or like you and your friend are just going to the library looking up something about Ted Bundy or whatever. I just appreciate that. I think it's better. It's kind of like, it's sort of like if you're gonna I don't want you to drink, but if you're gonna drink, I'd rather you do it here because I don't want you getting in a car and driving.
Right.
Like that sort of thing is, and it's also potentially contributing towards society in a meaningful way. So,
Yeah.
um,
And there's
you
also
know,
this element of like in that controlled environment, learning that that there are dangers in the world. These are real things. Like just the realization when is like when the Jeanette Robertson group went up and like sat down with Jeanette's sister and talked to her, and like that really like those emotions you heard in Sunday's episode, like that's like they're realizing these are real people, these stories that we're here, because a lot of them are into true crime, and they're watching documentaries, and they're
sure.
they're listening to podcasts, and they're doing things like that. But to see like this is not you know you know they're not going to look at it the same anymore. They understand like these are real people, these aren't stories, these are real people with real feelings. And I mean, I think it's been very I had one of my students dad grab me at the basketball game last night. She's one of the stars on the girls, which by the way, the girls on Tuesday night they won their quarterfinal game, and tomorrow on Thursday they are playing for the semifinals for the state. Go Lady Cats.
Yes, go Lady
uh
Cats.
but I was working with my other students that are in one of my other classes that are filming the games, and he grabbed me just to tell me, how much his daughter's enjoying it, and how much he appreciates the class and stuff. And I've never met him before, so I just love it. And then I was sitting with another student's parents for a few minutes talking about it. So it's been cool. Like most of the parents that have made an effort to talk to me, like they're really happy about the impact that it's had on their kids.
Oh, I love that. Ben says, and by the way, we've gotten so many, almost every single post has had like a nice, congratulations or great work
Mhm.
to the kids, great work to you, compliment. So if I've omitted that, it's just because we had so very many, which was lovely. But Ben says is inspiring. It's a great episode. But he says, I'm not even sure if this makes sense without a Bob Ruff type at each school, but how can other high schools set up and offer a similar course? Would it be sufficient to provide the curriculum for the course and potentially a how-to guide? I would love to see this type of course offered in every high school across the US and Canada, perhaps North America. You're going big. Ben's going big.
Yeah.
And ideally a little bigger around the world.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you'd have to have I think a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds could do this. Obviously, you have to have some background in media and production and stuff like that, but also somebody who has a background in investigative work. That's the thing about CTE classes, like the way, like in case you guys don't realize, I don't have a teaching license. There are provisions for career and technical education teachers that if you have so many years of industry experience, then that can qualify you to teach those classes at the high school level. So a lot of it comes down to, it has to start with the administration having the motivation to want to create the class. And then you really have a lot of flexes. So for me, like I'm listed under just the broadcasting, like TV and radio broadcasting is like my SIP code, they call it, that I teach under. And then within that, as long as I'm hitting all the different benchmarks that they require those to hit, I can kind of create the classes however I want. So someone absolutely could. I would certainly be happy to help anybody with. As a matter of fact, just today, my principal called me because he got a voicemail from someone from a school from a county over that was listening to the podcast that wanted to talk about how they can create a class like mine in there. So I'm going to be working with them, and I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. This class for me, Alex Campbell was that person for me from the Murder 101 podcast.
Sure.
Alex, when I had him on the show, when I heard that podcast, he taught a high school class that started working, and it was a sociology class that we're working on solving the series of murders. And I interviewed him and I talked to him, and I was like, man, I would love to find a way to fit this into what I do. And that's, I came up with investigative journalism. But Alex is actually on our advisory board. He comes to all of our meetings, and
nice.
Yeah, and he is so I guess what I'm getting at is I would always be happy to pay that forward. I'm still learning. I'm still, next year's class will look a little different than this one. There's some things I'm doing right, some things I'm doing wrong. But Alex has been there to help me all along the way, so I'm happy to do the same and try to pass some of that knowledge onto another school if anybody ever wants to get into it. You don't need a Bob Ruff. I don't even know if I'm the best guy to do it. I'm just a guy that is doing it.
We need that Alex Campbell Bob Ruff seminar.
Baby. There's my retirement job. Me and Alex will both retire from teaching and just go travel the world.
Mm-hmm.
No, I couldn't do it. That'd be like me going from being a fireman to being a fire chief and realizing, wait a minute, I'm not doing the thing that I like doing anymore.
Yeah.
That's just like my dad. My dad, same thing. High school teacher. They kept trying to give him, administrative jobs with raises and put him in charge of the districts and all that. And he's just like, why would I do that? I want to be with the kids. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
You want to pay me more? Great. But I'm staying with the kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Ben also wanted to clarify, just in case anyone else has this question, is everything is going to be released under the Underestimated podcast. So that's the feed where you're going to get everything, right? He says at least one group made a reference to a different podcast name. So he just wanted to make sure it's all coming under one umbrella, right?
Yeah. And that'll be our continued feed for next year and so on and so forth. So the Underestimated podcast is Brandywine High School's investigative journalism podcast feed. And then within the feed, they'll be different. So what we did is we had them, each group has their own logo art. So there's the main one that you see, the Underestimated podcast, but then each group has their own. So when those episodes drop, so you can kind of differentiate them, they'll have their own logo. So within that feed, so the first 3 episodes of this season are the Skelton brothers. The next 3 will be a different case. The next 3 will be a different case and a different group, obviously. And then the idea is that we're going to circle back before the year is over. We're hoping to get at least 2 more. We're starting to run out of time pretty quickly, as the seniors reminded me, because they get out a few weeks earlier than the rest of the class. They're like, Mr. Ruff, that we've only got 6 weeks left, right? So, we're hoping to get all that stuff buttoned up by then. But so everything will be on this feed.
Great. Fantastic. Well, Rosalind is very thankful for the hard work that your students are doing. On our Facebook page, she shared a very heartfelt, tragic story about her own grandfather going missing for almost 10 years, only for his son to eventually find his bones while riding an ATV in the desert. And she points out how important the type of work that these students are doing can be, and that getting that extra attention depending on where it's coming from. But if if that can help impact cases and things that get overlooked or things that, law enforcement doesn't have enough time for, she feels that something like that really probably could have helped her in her situation.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaking story on there that when they finally found the remains of her grandfather. And that's the whole thing is, right? So that if one of these groups is able to drum up one tip that helps bring some closure to one of these cases, that will just be absolutely incredible. I do want to address Chris in the chat said that the class seems like there's more of an emphasis on investigating over journalism. Not really. When you hear more of the episodes, you're hearing bits and pieces of the interviews and stuff. So yes, it's definitely, but this is truly how investigative journalism works, right? So they're spending a lot of time investigating files and trying to piece stuff together, but then they're also taking that information and figuring out how do we move forward from here beyond what's on the paper. And so they're finding witnesses to contact, creating interviews, and then they're also going through the process, which Janet, I'm sure you're familiar with it. But but even from like a documentary standpoint, where they're like literally creating beat sheets where it's like, okay, we have this script where we have, even though I've already spoken with this witness a couple of times, now I have my script where I'm talking about this, this, and this. So I need to get that witness to talk about this thing so I can get their perspective on it. And so they're planning that out and they're putting it all into storyboards and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's why it's not just a journalism class, it's an investigative journalism class, because that's all part of it.
Yeah, that's really hard. So I commend them for like each piece, quite frankly, of, however you want to think about this type of work, like if it's a tree with branches or a wheel with spokes,
Yeah.
each piece is hard in
Yeah.
and of its own. It is hard to edit. It is hard for many of us who aren't, brilliant musicians, imagine composing a theme. It's hard to figure out the order in which it makes sense to tell stories. And you've been very transparent about that when you get ready to start a season. Like I remember we talked a lot about that for the Pinion Pines cases. Like, where do I start? Because you always have 50 options and there isn't necessarily one that is the right and only answer. So it's very subjective. And so picking those moments and figuring out, and then having groups that all have potentially different opinions, or as one of the girls said, like people are afraid to maybe have an opinion because they haven't been given that power yet. All of that is like, it's a lot of work. And so I'm really impressed, and I can understand why they would be frazzled.
Yeah. It is. Well, we were just talking in the pregame about just the technical part of it, right? So where they're at now, the scripts are written, the episodes are recorded, the interviews are recorded, they're editing and putting it together. Like that process, like the one group, the Jeanette group, just Chelsea and Stephanie's group, their episodes are going to have a lot of, they have a ton of audio assets, right? So there's going to be a lot of like drop-ins. So like first they had to figure out what goes where, but then it's a matter of, okay, somebody's got to edit the basic edit on the 4-track recording to take out all the retakes and adjust the timing. And then once that's done, then we got to make adjustments for where does the music going to go. And then you got to find, okay, we need audio of this, this, and this, and then passing that to somebody else. Like go back to the interview with Lana. I need the part in there where she talks about this, and finding that and editing, and then somebody else editing that in there, and then putting the music in. It's like there's so many steps, and that's all. The thing about when it becomes journalism, it means you're taking all of your work and somehow putting it into a medium where you can deliver that to an audience. That's what the journalism piece of it is, whether it's, a written piece or a podcast or a documentary or a news broadcast. So yeah, like for especially the last like 2 or 3 months, it's been all about the journalism part of it. Like, how do you take that work you did and now turn it into a story in a medium that you can deliver to an audience?
Yeah, that's great. Well, from a journalism perspective, and the fact that, again, they are having to, they're putting themselves out there, they're putting their voices out there. Kristen says, congratulations. And she enjoyed that the young women sound like they're using their real voices. Like they're not, she says, so often women are taught to speak more forcefully or deeper for fear that they won't be taken seriously, or softer for the ease of, in Kristen's words, weak men, or with that kind of, with the newscaster voice that everyone uses that makes you feel like they're a robot a little bit.
Yeah.
Like that the authenticity and the honesty is really working for Kristen.
Yeah.
I think it's
so
Kristen.
too.
It was missing a T, but I think maybe it's Kristen and not Kristen.
Yeah. Yeah. Who typed that?
Not me.
That would be me. Yeah, it's really cool. And of course they're all nervous too. And they hear like I've trying to get the kids to not read reviews. First of all, I said, in general, you don't want to do it. If there's 1,000 good ones and one bad one, you're going to focus on it. Secondly, I've been doing this for a decade and I've developed a whole list of people who hate my guts. And those people are probably going to go onto your show and leave shitty reviews.
So stupid and lame.
Yeah,
Don't do it, guys. Just leave it.
Yeah.
Save it for Bob, please. Come on.
But yeah, so like they're worried about some of that too. Like, what if I don't sound good? What if they're talking about the way? Because because they hear it, right? Some of them, they're listening. They're like, I sound like I'm reading a script. I'm like, well, you are reading a script. This is the first time you've ever done it in your whole life.
That's a whole semester of a class. A whole semester of a class could be just vocal coaching for stuff like that, and that could be something that gets added down the line.
Yeah, but like you said, it's real and it's authentic. And actually, on that note, what would be really awesome, guys, is the podcast, as we mentioned, got all the way up to, so far this week, it's been up to rank number 37. really would love to see him in the top 10. And what would really help that is if every single one of you went on the Underestimated podcast and left him a 5-star review. That would get him there. That would push him up there. So if you got 3 minutes, that would be great.
Doing it. I saw some people in the chat that already were on it. They're like, on it, doing it. Be right back.
Awesome.
So well done. And then, yeah, just some other congratulations from Cindy. Cindy's very interested in the Skeleton Boys case. And of course, that is the episode that dropped today. And I'm really, really interested in what they've been able to do. And I can't wait to hear more. We all can't wait to hear more. So great work to the students and okay work to you.
It's all them. It's all them. Listen, I've taught very little in this class. I'm gonna be honest. It's been a weird experience because of the fact that, the other classes I'm teaching all day long. And in this one, it's a lot of, like you heard Gracie say, like the beginning of every class, what are you going to do to move your case forward today? And it's intentionally student driven, and I'm there for support is the way that the whole class is working or has worked. So yeah, I give them all the credit for everything they've done. They've just done incredible work. They're incredible people. They're going to be amazing adults. And is that all we got, Janet?
That's what we got.
All right. I think we're going to go and wrap this thing up. Thank you guys so much. And also, as you're going to hear, I already recorded this week's episode on Monday in a moment of panic. For those of you that were on social media saw it, this has been a crazy week for me because of the fact that our girls basketball team is going back to the state championship. We hope they're in semifinals tomorrow, which I would want to go because I have several of my students because I have primarily all girls in class. So I have many from that basketball team that have been like my kids this whole year. So I wouldn't miss it for the world. But also our advanced journalism class is filming it. So I got to be there every game with we're running 2 cameras and helping direct them and stuff.
Awesome.
But that means that's been every day this week, driving 3 to 6 hours, going to basketball games, and just got a lot going on. So I had in a moment of panic, I just want to get you guys real excited for the fact that one of my bestest friends, who I love so much for doing this, when I realized on Monday at 3 p.m. that literally that was the only free evening I had to record an episode, and I really wanted to do a psychological, like a behavioral analysis of the Delphi Bridge Guy video that has been released just this week, I took a shot in the dark and I texted Shiloh from the LA Not So Confidential podcast and said, is there any chance you could come on and look at this with me and do a breakdown of it? And she said, yep. And 2 hours later, we were on the air doing it. That's the episode that's coming on Sunday. And for something I got to say that was thrown together in 2 hours of extreme panic, it's really good, really informative. Dr. Shiloh she's the best. She's brilliant. And I think she did a really good job. And this might be one of the first takes you get to listen to about the Delphi case from somebody that has no skin in the game, is not overly invested in the case, doesn't have an opinion on innocence or guilt, just looking at the facts and the data that we have that has come out in this new piece of evidence. So that's coming up on Sunday. With that, we're going to let you guys go, and we'll talk to you next week on the follow-up. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Nice.
Solid. Yeah, I really hope that we get enough reviews to push them up. I know awesome. they were already like one of the, like Alexander was like, I have such a hard time calling it. I've known her. She's one of Bella's oldest friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've known her since she was 4 years old, and she's always been Allie to me.
Oh,
but she goes by Alexandra now. Someone was like Alexandra.
Yeah, I got some like that for sure. Yeah, it's not about not wanting to respect it. It's just like retraining your brain.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like sitting there. She was like, "Oh, look at this person said on the." I'm like, "Stop reading the reviews.
Don't do it.
Don't want to do it."
Yeah.
And there was definitely a couple in there that were some of my.
It's so awful. Why?
Yeah, that's pretty. Well, it goes. Well, I don't want to get into the negativity of it, but
well, I'm even to the point that I'm like, obviously they're your haters. They can come at you. They can come at me. They can come at Janet. We're fucking adults,
right?
Like, don't go at children. Come on. Seriously.
Yeah. Like, what are your guys? And truthfully, even if you're not a troll, I mean, like, what are you accomplishing when a group of teenagers has done something that no teenagers have done before, and they're doing their absolute best? What are you accomplishing? Like, it's one thing if you didn't like it and you leave a 1-star review, fine. But like to write out a shitty review for these kids that are doing their absolute best, like, get a fucking life. That's what I say to them. Get a life.
Yeah.
We should have recorded that part.
Yeah.
Agree.
No, I'm trying. This is no rant March for me. I'm going to have a no rant March.
No rant March. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I think
How's
we
that
can come
going?
with a better title.
Well, I think I made it
by next week. I'll have a better title for you. I'll figure one.
Yeah.
out.
Well, I got halfway through it and I realized that there's not a month that starts with R, so I was kind of screwed. And then I tried to think of something else, but I couldn't. No, something starts with M. That'd be good.
I'll think about it.
No,
I'm gonna go home.
Great.
Okay, guys.
Sounds like it stops.
I hope that I was gonna say, if that's over, then great.
I don't hear thunder anymore. It was getting pretty bad there for a minute.
There was a couple. Yeah. There was a couple pretty big
Fast
booms.
moving. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for joining us in the chat, and we'll talk to you guys also next week. Bye, Janet. We love you.
Bye, guys. Love ya.
Love you guys.
Bye-bye.